3 sinister wilderness tales, revealed secrets of haunted forests and cursed encounters. The darkness closed in around Lisa as she stumbled into the pines woods, her heart racing like a wild animal trapped in a cage. The flickering streetlights behind her had been like a safety net, but now they were snuffed out, leaving her alone in an abyss where shadows danced with menacing intent. The tales whispered in Cedar Hollow came flooding back, stories of disappearances, half-glimpsed figures lurking, and twisted spirits that played tricks on the unsuspecting. She couldn't shake the feeling that every rustle of leaves was a whisper telling her to turn back, but there was no other way home. Stepping deeper into the woods, the ground squished beneath her sneakers, the damp earth alive with a sickly scent. Lisa wrapped her arms around herself, not just from the chill, but to ward off the creeping sense of dread. How many times had she passed through here with her children, blissfully unaware? The trees loomed like ancient guardians, their gnarled branches reaching out as if hoping to ensnare her. Shadows stretched, refusing to reveal their origin, and her breath quickened. Before she could gather herself, a sudden snap like a twig breaking echoed in the silence. Lisa whipped around, every muscle tense. Was it just an animal? Or was something else waiting to pounce? She couldn't afford a moment of weakness. But the woods were alive with unseen sights and sounds that conspired against her. Panic clawed at her throat. She hurried her steps, hoping against hope that the path remained familiar. Days rolled on, and the stories, once mere folktales, became a festering wound in her mind. A neighbor's son went missing last week, and the cops shrugged it off, busy with more pressing matters. Almost dismissively, they told her to not get worked up over horror stories. Lisa felt her stomach twist in knots. Wasn't he at all just a little too odd? The way old Mr. Hargrove hovering near their porch seemed to take more than just an interest in the mother and her children. He would offer a helping hand but linger too long, his eyes unnaturally glinting in the dim light. Then one evening, as dread hung thick in the air, her son Jeremy burst into the house. "Mom! Look what I found!" His excitement was palpable, and Lisa held her breath as he presented her with a weathered book, its pages yellowed and fraying. It felt heavy with secrets, horror stories mixed with chilling illustrations depicting vengeful spirits and horrific fates for those who wandered too far into the woods. Her hands trembled as panic hit her again. What had they stumbled upon? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the nights dragged on, even the simplest sounds had her heart racing. Then, Jeremy claimed to have seen something in the woods, an indistinct figure, watching from the trees. She brushed it off, until the unease etched deeper lines into her thoughts. Mr. Hargrove's face appeared uninvited in her mind, creeping alongside with the whispers of the woods. The eerie sensation of being watched became unbearable. What was happening? The safe world she had built for her children seemed to be crumbling beneath her feet, replaced by ominous shadows. Each door she locked felt more like a fragile shield, leaving them vulnerable against the night. Then a crash resounded from outside, slashing through the thick tension of despair. Lisa turned towards the door, breath caught in her throat. A dark shape darted past the window, a figure that did not belong to reality, but to a nightmare, pulling her family deeper into its cursed embrace. What awaited them in the darkness? Lisa's heart hammered in her chest as she pressed her back against the front door, the wood cool and unyielding. The crash had felt like the world itself tearing apart. Shadows flitted beyond the window, bending and twisting unnaturally, making it hard to tell where the outside ended and the realm of nightmares began. "Mom!" Jeremy's voice broke through the haze of terror, small and shaky. Lisa turned to see him standing wide-eyed in the hallway, clutching the frayed book like a lifeline. "What was that?" "I don't know," she whispered, her throat dry. "Stay close, okay?" Without waiting for a response, she moved cautiously toward the window, each step heavy with a dread she couldn't articulate. Just a raccoon, she rationalized under her breath, though the quaking in her stomach told another story. The woods often harbored wild animals still, this felt different. As she peered out into the gloom, the moonlight painted jagged silver on the ground, illuminating patches of tangled roots and discarded leaves. Then she saw it again, a dark shape flitting through the trees, not quite human, not quite animal. The way it moved sent a shiver down her spine. Just as she opened her mouth to call out, it stopped, frozen for a moment before vanishing as if swallowed by the night. "Mom!" Jeremy cried, his voice higher now, tinged with fear. "What's out there?" "Nothing, just it was probably an animal," she lied, forcing a smile she didn't feel. But her thoughts spiraled, alive with what she was desperately trying to ignore. Mr. Hargrove, how had she not noticed before? The way he always lingered too long on their porch, the way he leered when he thought no one was watching. Maybe it wasn't just her imagination. They needed to get away from those woods. Those accursed woods. The night dragged on, shadows stalking the windows, pressing in as if gathering their strength. The book in Jeremy's hands became a talisman against creeping malevolence, and she frantically flipped through its pages, scanning for anything that could help. Descriptions of lost souls, of children who ventured too far and were never seen again. Her throat tightened as she stumbled upon a sketch of an awful creature, a twisted figure with long limbs and a deranged smile that filled her with icy dread. "Oh my God," she muttered, reeling back. "Mom! What is it?" Jeremy moved closer, peering into the book. "Nothing, Jeremy, just let us put this away." But her hands shook. The words seemed to whisper warnings she couldn't dismiss. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging them into darkness. The oppressive weight of the unseen pressed down on her, filling the air with a palpable tension. Lisa fumbled for her phone, the small beam of light piercing through the thick veil of night. "Stick close," she instructed, feeling small and powerless. Footsteps echoed outside, slow and deliberate, a haunting rhythm that made her heart drop to her stomach. There was no mistaking it, someone was coming. She peered out into the darkness once more, trembling. The shape was back. It stood still, watching, waiting. Just then, an unearthly howl split the air, echoing through the trees. A sound that transcended any earthly beast, a sound that resonated with ages of malevolence. "Jeremy, lock the door. Now." The boy moved instinctively, his small fingers fumbling with the latch, but the noise continued, a steady hum that began to creep under her skin. Lisa's breath caught as she faced the darkened woods. What lived out there? In the madness of the moment, the book slipped from her hands and tumbled to the ground. The pages fluttered open, as though trying to reveal a secret meant to warn her of the doom that stood on the other side of the door. But it was too late to turn back. As she grasped the door handle, ready to pull it shut, she heard a whisper, soft yet insistent, drifting from the shadows outside, inviting, promising something she would never understand. The voice called her name. Before she could react, the door rattled violently, launching her into a frenzy. What awaited beyond the threshold? Was it Mr. Hargrove? Or something worse? A new terror washed over her. The forest was not just alive, it was alive with hunger, eager to claim what was inside. Lisa's grip tightened on the doorknob, adrenaline surging. Would she be the next lost child of the Pines Woods? Or could she find a way to escape? She had to know. With that final thought, she slowly turned the handle, prepared to face whatever lay beyond the darkened doorway. The door creaked open, revealing thick darkness that belied the stillness outside. Lisa felt a rush of cold air wash over her, a bitter bite that wrapped around her legs like icy fingers. She hesitated, heart racing, trying to gather her breath. "Mom! Don't!" Jeremy urged, his voice shrill, edged with panic. She couldn't reassess. The whispering had grown louder, an urgent murmur that crept into her mind like a spider weaving a web. It called her closer, pulling her toward the threshold. Her instincts screamed at her to retreat, yet curiosity gnawed at her guts. She could feel at the deep undertow of fear battling against the need to know what lurked beyond their fragile bubble of safety. "Jeremy, stay back," she hissed, pushing the door wider, the beam from her phone illuminating the porch, casting long shadows that clawed at her feet. Outside, the world felt thicker, each breath punctuated by a thrum of energy, as though the very ground was whispering secrets. A branch cracked, and her heart lurched. Something was out there. She just needed to see it. "Mom!" His voice pierced the tension again. She glanced back at Jeremy, his small figure illuminated by the flickering light. There was fear etched on his face, a stark reminder of the reality pressing in on them. But too late, the shadows captured her attention. They twisted in ways that ignited her imagination. Maybe it was all just a trick of the light, just branches dancing in the faint glow. Or perhaps it was far worse. Then she saw it, a flash of movement, just beyond the trees, a dark silhouette merging seamlessly with the shadows. A figure, much more monstrous than the vague anxieties swirling in her mind. It stood hunched, lithe and angular, with grotesque limbs stretching impossibly long. "Mom, please," Jeremy whimpered, stepping closer to her. The pulse of fear radiating from him tugged at her heart, yet she felt anchored to the door, transfixed. Suddenly, the howl came again, this time up close, echoing in her ears, raw and primal. It vibrated through her bones, hollering a promise of chaos and despair. She stumbled back, the light dancing wildly as she wrestled with panic. Not knowing what to do, she screamed, "Get inside!" Jeremy rushed past her into the house, the doors slamming behind him. Lisa turned, ready to follow, but the air crackled with an energy that halted her. She could almost sense the creature understanding it wanted her to stay, to delve deeper into the darkness rather than escape. That's when she noticed the book, pages fluttering in the night's breeze, whispering secrets she had neglected in her heart. Driven by a force beyond her comprehension, she bent to retrieve it. The pages erupted as the wind thrust them outward, revealing gaunt figures and dark depictions. Words leapt up at her, screaming their warnings. "What have you done?" they seemed to cry. "You've called on the forest," and then, without warning, a dreadful gasp shuddered through the trees. The creature emerged from behind a colossal oak, grotesque eyes reflecting hunger framed by a maelstrom of wild hair, its head bent low like a predator locking on to prey. Lisa's breath hitched as it took a step toward her, the ground shifting unnaturally beneath its pointed feet. "Mom! Please!" Jeremy's voice trembled from behind her, desperate and frantic. The ground beneath Lisa felt unstable, almost alive, as if it sought to swallow her whole. She struggled to breathe, the enormity of the figure pressing in, and she realized with cold clarity she faced not just a creature, but the very essence of the wood's darkness. "Run!" she yelled, but the command felt futile. The shadows pulled tighter around her, as she felt herself teetering between two worlds, one filled with her son's fear, the other with that dreadful call of the abyss beyond. And that crucial instant, she caught a glimpse of the creature's mouth splitting into a grin, as if it understood the cruel game it played. Resistance felt pointless, and then, the whispers crescendoed hotly in her ears, urging her to abandon all reasoning, to surrender to the shadows. "Mom, don't leave me!" With Jeremy's terrified screech echoing in her mind, she reached for the light, shoving the door closed. But as the wood met the frame, she felt the futile push against something not just physical, but an urge that transcended will. The grip of the night tightened, ready to claim both mother and child. Lisa's heart thundered, oscillating between terror and resolve. Could she sever the connection? As she turned back to face the shadowy landscape beyond the door, the creature's eyes glowed, two beacons of wretched promise. "You've already chosen," and with that, the very air began to hum in sinister anticipation, heralding an unknown fate that loomed just beyond her grasp. What horrific truths awaited them in the depths of the witching hour? The shadows swirled around her as Lisa's heart raced, pounding like a drum in her chest. The door felt like a barrier against the night, but the whispers were relentless, clawing their way into her thoughts. "You've already chosen," the words echoed, wrapping around her mind like chains. "Mom!" Jeremy's voice was a thread of sanity amidst the chaos, but it tugged at her like a lifeline. She turned, seeing his frightened face framed by the faint glow of the house. Fear flickered in his eyes, but beneath it, there was a glimmer of something else: trust. She couldn't let him down. She had to find a way out. Yet, the creature stood still, a sinister statue watching her every move. Its eyes shimmered with an otherworldly hunger, as if it were savoring the slow unraveling of her resolve. For a moment, the world dimmed, the trees loomed larger, their gnarled branches clawing at the starlit sky like skeletal fingers. With gritted teeth, Lisa stepped back, determination flaring. "Stay inside!" she shouted. But as she spoke, her own voice trembled, betraying the uncertainty gnawing at her heart. The enormous figure shifted, a ripple of darkness moving through the forest. It took another long step forward, and the ground quaked beneath its weight, instability radiating outward in waves. She felt the urge to flee, but the shadows yanked at her feet, binding her in place, clawing at her resolve. "Mom, please!" Jeremy's pleading cut through the thick atmosphere, pulling her from the brink of despair. The pull to him was strong, but the allure of the perilous secrets whispered by the book lay in her other hand, the pages still fluttering madly. What had she done? The words screamed at her from the pages, weaving a tale of dread she had unwittingly invited into their lives. Gripped by terror, she made a choice: she had to confront the horror. "Stop!" she cried out, tossing the book into the darkness. The creature halted, its grotesque face woven with confusion and malice. For a brief instant, she felt the energy shift, as if the shadows held their breath. But then, without warning, the howl erupted again, the sound that ripped through the air, raw and primal, sending shockwaves of terror through her entire being. It reminded her of a pack of wolves, hunting. Desperate, the creature lunged, its long limbs slicing through the air, a flurry of darkness breaking the threshold of her home. Lisa instinctively grabbed for the door, swinging it shut harder than before, her fingers trembling on the handle. The scream erupted from her throat as panic surged. "Jeremy! Behind me!" She felt his presence, small, warm, frightened as he pressed against her back, clinging tightly. Then the force of nature roared. The door splintered as something slammed against it, the weight and fury enough to shake the frames. Lisa stumbled, eyes wide with terror. Suddenly, the whispers transformed into screams, a cacophony that filled her ears, drowning out all thoughts. The shadows began to collapse, coiling like smoke around her, tightening around her throat, choking every breath. "Mom!" Jeremy screamed, holy terror ringing in every syllable. Desperation surged, and she turned, lunging back into the house, pulling Jeremy with her just as the door crashed open. The creature slashed through the darkness, a giantess silhouette spilling into the light, its laughter echoing a hollow sound that promised torment. They needed to run. Reeling, Lisa pushed Jeremy ahead. "Go!" she ordered, but the ground still felt alive, pulsing beneath her feet, a heartbeat waiting to claim them. She hit a wall of cold air that wrapped around her, taking her breath. The shadows clawed at her mind, offering secrets, dragging her away from reason. Then she noticed the walls of the night trembling. The book. The answer to their escape might lay within the madness she'd already awakened. With a leap of faith, she dashed back to the doorway, her feet finding traction as she seized the fluttering pages from where they had fallen. The creature's laughter grew louder, a monstrous echo of victory, flooding her senses, rolling over her like thunder. Images from the book blurred together, and Lisa felt a spark of understanding. If she could invoke the stories, could she also reverse the grasp of darkness? But at what cost? With the pages gripped tightly in her hand, she faced the creature once more. Its eyes glinted, a predator poised to strike, but she had a plan now, a shred of hope buried beneath layers of panic. As she began to chant, the words bubbling in her throat, every heartbeat swelled with urgency. The whispers arose again, but entwined with a different sort of power, stirring memories and truths long forgotten, and just as she thought she would bring order to the chaos, the air shifted once more, splitting the dark sky wide open and letting in a pulse of blinding light. "End this, She beseeched, expecting nothing good from the shadows lurking at the edge of her courage, but instead of liberation, something much darker emerged, a keeper of the forest waiting to deliver a different truth. What new horror has she invoked? What fate awaited in the shadows entwined with her very soul? The air thrummed with a palpable dread, each breath Lisa took growling with dark memories now clawing at her sanity. The light pierced the shadows, offering no safety, only exposing the grotesque truth hidden within the forest. A figure emerged, born from the very fabric of the earth and sky, an ancient guardian, creased with sorrow and malice, its eyes unfathomably old and full of mourning. Lisa's heart raced, stuttering as she encountered this new horror, her mind racing to comprehend the betrayal of her own actions. Had the words of the book betrayed her, or had she awakened something better left undisturbed? The whispers intensified, spiraling into torment, begging her to listen, to unravel the secrets she dared coax from slumber. "Mom!" Jeremy pulled at her sleeve, his small voice a threadbare rope in the tempest of fear surrounding them. The boy was trembling, eyes wide, yet she felt a deeper bond, a silent promise that they would endure together. In that moment, her anguish melded with helpless fury. "Get back!" she barked, narrowing her eyes on the grotesque keeper approaching, its form warping with every heartbeat, like liquid shadows spilling into the light. She had summoned this creature, but now she realized, it held an intersection of choices given to all who tread the forest's edge. The earth shifted beneath them, roots curling up like serpents eager to entrap. A piercing scream echoed through the trees, not from their own fear but from the anguish of the forest itself. The guardian raised a twisted hand, and in that instant, that familiar voice wrapped around her mind, "You've already chosen." Had she? Hadn't she just fought to shatter that curse? But the feeling of certainty ebbed as the figure loomed larger, its shadow stretching, reaching for her, whispering promises of sawdust-sweet power and raw vengeance. Would embracing this darkness allow her to protect Jeremy, or plunge them both deeper into eternal despair? "Stop!" Lisa screamed, her voice trembling as the realization crashed down on her. The knowledge that her fate was entwined with this being. It could gift them strength or rip their souls apart. Suddenly, a flood of memories battled for dominance. She recalled each curse that her ancestors had spoken, each sin etched into the soil, cycling through them like a ritual, and here and now she was part of it. The keeper's words were persuasive, they slithered through her heart, whispering, showing her visions of power long forgotten. "Make your vow," the guardian roared as the shadows writhed around him, the promise hanging in the air like fog. "A pact must be sealed." "No!" she shouted, shaking her head violently. Distraction crept through, wrapping its tendrils around reason, and Jeremy clung harder, oblivious of the weight crushing them both. But a flicker of determination rekindled in the depths of her despair. Lisa could not relinquish their future to the eldritch being before her. She could destroy this tether, reverse whatever terror she had wrought, but at what cost would it come to her son? Then, the pages of the book shifted, unraveling in the gust of night air like a tempest of horror ready to bare its teeth. If she could harness the energy, perhaps she could turn back the darkness. "Listen!" she called out, gripping the book tightly. "I command you to reveal your depths." A gamble of desperation whirred in her heart, the laughter of the creature melded with the whispers, a cacophony of chaos. Shadows crouched, colliding with the frantic beat of the earth, expanding with anticipation, as if they too awaited the outcome of her gamble, but as the guardian's gaze locked on her, she saw neither fear nor anger but a deep, swirling need, hunger like hers. They were not so different, she and this creature. Both were bound by the chains of fate, both desperately seeking escape from the echoes of the past. "Make your choice." It thundered, and as the earth shuddered, Lisa felt the pulse of her deepest fears entwined with longing for power. "Join me or be consumed." The weight of the moment crashed down. Time hung suspended. A tide of anticipation rolled through the forest, and with it, the enormity of their situation settled on her shoulders heavily, urging her to decide more than just her fate. But before she could answer, the forest trembled, pulling them both toward an unseen abyss, the chasm of choices they were cornered to face. Would her next words bring salvation or doom? In that heart-stopping moment of choice, the shadows spun with intensity, A storm of darkness swirling, eager to devour everything in sight. What awaited them in this labyrinth of despair? What truths waited in the shadows, whether for salvation or horror? The shadows roared, a chorus of slithering dread that wrapped around Lisa and Jeremy like icy fingers. The Guardian's presence loomed, a jagged silhouette against the flickering light. As terror filled her veins, she felt the weight of impending choice, pressing down harder than any physical bond. The air crackled with expectation, a taut string waiting for a snap that would send shockwaves through the otherworldly realm. "Mom, please." Jeremy's voice trembled, woven with fear. It pierced through the chaos like a desperate plea from the depths of a nightmare. She willed herself to focus, but the place felt distorted, each sound and movement twisted in a maddening dance. With the book clutched tightly, Lisa gritted her teeth. Revelations flashed through her mind, contrasting visions of what lay ahead. She could either stand up against the Guardian, breaking the chains their ancestors had forged, or intertwine their fates deeper into this murky abyss, nourishing the creature's hunger. "Speak!" commanded the Guardian, its voice echoing as if the forest itself listened. The shadows pulsed in dark delight, a body eager for sacrifice. "Choose your path, for the time slips away." What if she didn't choose at all? What if she tore the veil between them, reasons blurring into chaos? Was there strength in refusal? In her heart, rage brewed a pit of boiling fury at the past, her ancestors' trivial mistakes that led to this moment. "I will not bind my son to you," she shouted, the words slicing through the swirling shadows. But even as the defiance spilled forth, she felt the ground quiver, and whispers slithered through her consciousness. "Mom, don't." Jeremy tugged at her, panic written across his small face. The Guardian swelled, shadows spiraling upward like whispers of a devil-esque choir. With every breath, the air grew heavier, laced with the acrid scent of betrayal. Blood surged in her ears, a frantic drum beating dreadfully faster. Was this the moment she had to break? "You will be consumed," roared the Guardian, veins of darkness reaching out like claws, eager to claim her defiance. The power surged from the depths of the book, a chaotic force sharing its secrets, and for a fleeting moment, she felt it, the immense flood of energy, dark and sharp, ready to be unleashed. What if she commanded the shadows, turning them into weapons instead? "We can end this," she shouted, her voice battling against the encroaching darkness. "We can sever your hold." In that instant, the Guardian paused, its eyes narrowing, ancient sorrow tangling with rage. A strange tremor shuddered through the earth, grounding her decision. The book's pages vibrated as if alive, revealing the lost incantations of forbidden power. Could she wield it not as a means of binding, but to sever the cursed threads entirely? "No!" Jeremy cried, confusion mixing with terror. But as he clung tighter to her side, a flicker of resolve ignited within her. The shadows pulled back, just enough for her to see a glimmer of the terrifying truth. The path before her was as jagged as shattered glass, rising ominously against her will. "I will do it. I can break you." The Guardian's laughter rolled like thunder, a sound that shook the air, drowning Jeremy's cries. It was a sound that seemed to echo the pain of the forest itself, ancient, unyielding, and through the chaos, the dark figure bent closer, its breath chilling. "You've chosen, now face what comes next." Barely able to breathe, Lisa infused every ounce of her desperation and fury into the words that came next, vocalizing the power brewing within her, a glimmer of hope interlaced with horror. But before she could finish the incantation, the earth trembled violently, a rush of wind standing against her. The shadows recoiled but then surged forward, dark waves ready to reclaim their territory, and the forest screamed in rage. "Mom!" Jeremy cried out again, terror threading through his voice. In that instant, the forest split open, revealing hidden caverns filled with mysteries far darker than she had imagined. Whatever she was about to summon, was it power or another hellish nightmare? As she felt herself pulled toward the gaping maw of shadows, a chilling thought flickered in the back of her mind: what if the real choice was yet to come? Would they emerge, victorious and free, or would they plunge into an even deeper horror? The ground trembled beneath them, an unknown force pulling them closer to the edge of doom. The Guardian's eyes reflected the depth of impending dread, hungry and wild. What awaited them when everything fell away? Lisa's heart raced, each beat a desperate drum against the encroaching darkness. She could feel the shadows thrumming like a tightly wound string, ready to snap. In that dreadful moment, Jeremy clung to her side, his small body trembling, eyes wide with terror. The Guardian loomed over them, a mass of swirling darkness, drawing closer, its breath a chill that froze the air. "Mom, don't!" Jeremy's voice quaked, breaking through the tension like a fragile glass. But Lisa couldn't afford to falter. With a final glance at her son, she steeled her resolve. The book pulsed in her hands, its pages shimmering with forbidden text, urging her to speak, to draw forth the power it promised. "Face what comes next," the Guardian hissed, its talons outstretched with greedy intent. Shadows danced like flames around them, the forest alive with an eerie energy, as if nature itself held its breath, summoning every ounce of courage. Lisa raised the book, feeling the word structure within her mind like a storm ready to break free. She had to act. But before she could utter a single syllable, the ground beneath them shivered violently. The earth split open, swallowing the light and sending Jeremy tumbling backward, his scream echoing in the void. "Jeremy!" She reached out, her fingers brushing against his arm, pulling him back from the abyss of shadow. But even as she held on, she could feel the dark energy wrapping around her, crashing against her resolve, wrapping her thoughts in fear and doubt. "Together," she gasped, "we have to do this together." The shadows pulsed in response, their presence a living entity, hungry for the bond they sought to shatter. The Guardian's laughter echoed, a deep, guttural sound that shook the very fabric of the forest. It seemed amused by their struggle, by the bond between mother and son, but it was enough to ignite the fire within her. "No more!" she shouted, her voice rising against the overwhelming tide. "I will not lose you." Just as the Guardian lunged forward, claws extended, Lisa closed her eyes and unleashed the words that had resonated within her since the moment she opened that cursed book. "Lan Mori." The syllables rolled off her tongue, infused with desperation and fury. Energy surged through her as the shadows paused, a palpable stillness filling the space. But then, the ground shuddered again, the darkness roared louder, and Lisa felt a surge of something terrible. The incantation had ignited the Guardian's wrath, the shadows morphed, twisting and writhing like serpents, clawing at the very essence of the air they breathed. "You stand against me?" The Guardian's voice bellowed, deep as the abyss itself. "You will pay." A searing pain shot through her chest as if the shadows were pulling her apart from within. Fear coursed through her veins like ice, but she held firm, gripping the book tighter. Panic flashed in Jeremy's eyes, and she could see him beginning to waver, his small hands shaking. "Hold on to me!" she shouted, anchoring them with all the strength she could muster. As the shadows lunged again, something unexpected happened. A bright light burst from the book, erupting in a wild blaze that pushed against the darkness. For a brief moment, clarity washed over her. The shadows recoiled, writhing away from the light as if it was acid burning their form. "Now, Jeremy!" she yelled, fighting through the pain. Together. They channeled the light, their voices intertwining, calling upon ancient strength, ancient love, something the Guardian could not comprehend, nor consume. But as they pushed deeper, the Guardian shrieked, a sound of fury mingled with fear. "Foolish mortals!" It howled as the darkness began to retreat, but deep within the shadows, Lisa glimpsed something sinister rushing closer. A pair of glowing red eyes, larger and hungrier than the Guardian itself, emerged from the depths behind it. What more lay hidden in this cursed dark? Just as she thought they might escape, the surrounding shadows surged once more, a tide of nightmares crashing down. As the darkness coiled, hungry to reclaim them, Lisa could feel the boundaries of their world slipping away. Would they be consumed, or could they break this cycle? The abyss yawned wide, ready to swallow them whole. And behind it, something far greater stirred. What would they unleash next? The light pulsed brighter, an ephemeral beacon against the hungry darkness. Chains of shadows thrashed like wild beasts, each ravenous tendril searching for any weakness in their defenses. "Mom! I can't," Jeremy cried, his voice cracking. Fear twisted in his stomach as he strained against the pressure of the shadows swirling around them. They were stronger now, almost sentient, clawing at his thoughts, whispering fears that felt too real. "Just hold on," Lisa shouted back, each word a lifeline. She felt the weight of the book growing heavier, its power both an anchor and a burden. The text on its pages shimmered, beckoning her to dig deeper, revealing a hidden truth: the light alone wouldn't save them. The Guardian wasn't just an entity, it was a seal, and something far more wicked was about to be unleashed. "Mom, look!" Jeremy yelled, pointing at the encroaching shadows. The red eyes flared behind the Guardian like a forest fire. They glowed with a malignant hunger, a promise of unspeakable horrors. As the Guardian shrieked, the shadows surrounding it shifted like a curtain drawn back, revealing a gaping maw that threatened to engulf everything. The forest trembled. "Lan Mori." Lisa repeated, her voice trembling against the chaos, the words reminding her of ancient rituals performed under crescent moons. But now they rang hollow, consumed by the dark. "It's coming!" Jeremy screamed, clinging to her arm, eyes wide with terror. She could feel him trembling, the vulnerability radiating from him like a beacon. The bond between them thrummed louder than the imminent doom, a desperate heartbeat echoing in the stifling air. With a flash of instinct, Lisa yanked the book closer, a shield against the malevolent gaze. "We have to shift it. We need to flip the spell." The words stirred something within her, a flicker of knowledge hidden in the corners of her mind. "No!" She roared at the shadows, rage surging to the forefront. "We will not be your prey." The dark mass recoiled at her defiance, a moment's pause in the insanity. But the glowing red eyes only grew closer, igniting a fear deeper than the void they faced. It was an unimaginable entity, one that thrived on despair. More shadows slashed through the air, slicing apart the barrier of light they desperately built. The Guardian's claws lunged toward them, each stroke threatening to rip them apart. Lisa felt the cold tendrils wrap around her ankles, a vice tightening with every breath she took. "Help me, Jeremy!" she yelled, forcing her voice through the fog of despair. "We can do this." "Okay," he cried, summoning every ounce of determination in his small frame. Together they channeled their strength, pushing against the crushing weight of the shadows. The air crackled, each word they spoke igniting a spark against the darkness. Within her mind, an image formed: the Guardian had no power without its master, even the darkest creatures had their masters. Lisa could sense that the real threat was now free, lurking just beyond reach, waiting for their moment of weakness, and suddenly, it happened. A shockwave erupted from the book, the light blinding, forcing the shadows to peel back. The Guardian screamed, its voice a cacophony of rage, echoing like thunder in the void, but as fear tightened her chest, and hope flickered like a dying flame, Lisa caught a glimpse of a shadow within a shadow. Something more ominous and twisted than she could comprehend reached for her, talons glimmering with a sinister promise, a distinct whisper promising to fill her with despair. "Jeremy, we have to." "What?" He quaked, stepping back, confusion painting his face. The change in the atmosphere was palpable, it was no longer just about escaping. They had awakened a darkness that demanded more than they could fathom, a price they weren't ready to pay. The night darkened further, an abyss that threatened to swallow the remnants of their will. What if they couldn't turn the tide? What if freedom came at a staggering cost? In that moment, the ground shook again, and Lisa knew this was just the beginning. The ground trembled beneath them, echoing the urgency thrumming in Lisa's veins. Every vibration felt like a warning, a sinister prelude to the horror that lurked just beyond their sight. Shadows twisted and turned, folding into themselves, creating a grotesque dance of despair as the air thickened with the stench of decay and desperation. "What are we supposed to do, Mom?" Jeremy pleaded, his voice a fragile whisper, barely carrying over the ominous whispers that swirled around them. We need to bring the light back. She shouted, desperation fueling her words. Instinctively, she flipped through the pages of the ancient book, each rustle sending icy tendrils of dread crawling down her spine. The text had become a cipher, alive and potent, yet painfully cryptic. With every second, she felt the shadows close in, a ravenous tide, hungry to snuff out the last flickers of hope. The guardian's form flickered in and out of reality, its screams piercing through the night like nails on a chalkboard. The darkness lunged forward, its claws poised to ensnare them in its cold, unyielding grasp. "Mom, do something!" Jeremy cried, his voice cracking as the light began to dim, both tangible and intangible. It felt as though hope was dragged into the murky depths along with it. "Hold on!" Lisa barked, trying to channel every ounce of her spirit. She grasped the book tightly, the weight now a symbol of their last stand. "I can feel it, Jeremy. If we can just pull from the light." The air shimmered again, and for a fleeting second, Lisa felt an electric charge, sparks igniting between her fingertips and the pages of the book. She closed her eyes and focused on the warmth, digging deeper into the words that resonated with ancient power. But the shadows hissed in response, thrashing violently, pushing back with an insatiable need to claim them. Then she caught sight of something dark, billowing and massive, an entity manifesting from the depths of the shadows. It coiled and pulsed, seeking them, taunting them with promises of whatever they feared most: loss, isolation, anguish. It held a gravity that threatened to pull her into madness. "Stay close," she ordered, her voice a steady force in a torrent of chaos. She could see Jeremy's fear reflected in those wide eyes, but she couldn't falter now. They needed to work together. Think of the light. Together. She forced her mind to meld with hers, recalling moments of joy, warmth, times when the world seemed safe and the shadows were merely the absence of light. As she felt their connection strengthening, the shadows momentarily recoiled, and Lisa choked out the words, "We are not afraid." But the creature laughed a horrid sound, twisted and warped, echoing deep within her. It reveled in their defiance. Suddenly, the atmosphere thickened with a new kind of fear, and the air crackled with dark energy. "Mom, the eyes!" Jeremy shouted, pointing. The red eyes flared like burning coals, glaring at them with unholy intensity. They pulsed in rhythm with the creature's heartbeat, a sickening reminder of what they faced. "What do you want from us?" Lisa yelled into the tormenting void, every syllable a battle cry. "We will not give in." The shadows shuddered as the creature drew closer, talons glinting ominously beneath the dim light. The ground began to warp, twisting into a nightmarish landscape of despair and hopelessness. Just when Lisa thought they would be consumed, the book exploded with blinding light. It erupted like a star being born, filling the abyss with warmth. But even as it illuminated the darkness, something felt wrong, terribly wrong. Something was awakened. "Mom." Jeremy whimpered as the creature momentarily drew back, but it wouldn't be long. And then she sensed that the price of defiance loomed ever closer, lurking in the depths of the shadows, ready to collect for every flicker of light they sought to unleash. The very fabric of their reality hung in the balance. They needed to know what lay ahead, but at what cost. "Prepare yourself, Jeremy," she murmured, sheer dread tightening around her heart. "We might have to pay it." What was waiting for them in the dark corners of the forest? Something was stirring, ready to make its move. Lisa's heart raced as the blinding light enveloped her and Jeremy, pushing against the shadows like a powerful tide. "Together!" she shouted, squeezing Jeremy's hand as they faced the looming darkness. They had come too far to turn back now. She remembered every protective instinct, every loving moment they had shared, every laugh that had brightened their darkest days. It was time to harness all that love and channel it against the encroaching fear. The guardian's voice boomed in response, shaking the very ground beneath them. "You think you can defy the darkness? You think love can conquer all?" But Lisa wasn't about to let despair win. She gazed into Jeremy's eyes, asserting, "We can't give in. Trust me." Her mind echoed with the spells from the book, each word a lifeline dangling in the face of the abyss. We have to draw the light out. The shadows hissed, a chaotic orchestra of despair that aimed to fracture their spirits. Yet, she felt strength bubbling up from within, igniting a fire in her soul. Now, shout it. She urged Jeremy. Together, they let their voices rise above the howling void. Light will break the darkness. The shadows recoiled, momentarily shaken by their combined force. Lisa could feel it, the energy swirling around them, a dancing pulse almost alive. Again. She urged, pushing deeper into her resolve. Together. We command the light. Together. We command the light. Jeremy echoed, his small voice unwavering in its conviction. The light surged back, warm and radiant, dispelling the cold that threatened to wrap around them. Lisa squeezed her eyes shut, envisioning the laughter, the smiles, the warmth of their home, everything they were fighting for, and as they unleashed their belief into the world, it felt like a dam breaking. They were spilling into the darkness with everything they had. With each chant, tendrils of light glided through the shadows, igniting sparks in the murky abyss. The guardian screeched, its towering form contorting, struggling against the brightness. An arm of murky darkness flailed at them, but it was now met with a radiant wall of energy that pushed back. I won't to let you take anything from us. Lisa cried, finding newfound power behind her words. She could feel the very fabric of reality shifting, the air shimmering with golden threads, becoming a barrier between them and the monstrous depths, and then they glimpsed at a colossal figure hidden behind the guardian, darker than night, with burning red eyes that gleamed with unrelenting hunger. It flooded through the shadows, emanating despair that threatened to crush their spirits entirely. Pressing onward, Lisa harnessed every ounce of love and desperation. You're nothing. She called, her voice rising against the screeching chaos. You will not claim my son. But even through her resolve, doubts clawed at her mind. What if this wasn't enough? What if they fell away into the shadows? Jeremy gasped, Mom. It's going to eat us. No, she urged, locking her eyes onto the power swirling in the depths of the book. The pages rumbled with forgotten energy, beckoning her closer to a truth she needed to unveil. She thrust the book into the soft glow, opening it wide as if the pages could breathe life into her thoughts. Words flowed from her lips, spilling out like a river. Lan Mori. We stand united against you, shadows of despair. The language carved through the air like a weapon, slicing through the darkness, and inky tendrils began to shatter upon impact. The energy coiled around them, exploded outward, and for a fleeting moment, the forest felt alive. Relief flowed into her heart as she realized they were not alone. An ancient power surged with them, rekindled by their pact of protection. With a final chant, the light crescendoed, enveloping them in a warm embrace. The shadows dissipated, writhing like lost souls. The guardian's howl morphed into a sound of pure anguish as it was swept away, defeated. The forest rumbled, shadows retreating, leaving only a serene tranquility atop the battlefield they had survived. The oppressive weight lifted, and a stillness settled around them. Lisa and Jeremy staggered backward, breathless and trembling, but alive. They clung to each other tightly as daylight seeped into the clearing, pushing through the last remnants of darkness that lingered in their hearts. Tears rolled down Lisa's face, not from fear or despair, but from relief, from love, and a victory she was bound to remember. Did we do it? Jeremy's voice quivered with hope. Yes. Lisa smiled through her tears, her heart swelling with love and pride. We did it, Jeremy. We're free. The woods around them whispered quiet thanks as the echoes of their battle faded. They were homeward bound now, the sunlight warming their frames as a promise of brighter days ahead. As they stepped from the curse of the Pines woods, their spirits renewed, Lisa glanced back at the foreboding trees. We broke the cycle, she said softly. She wouldn't forget, nor would she take their safety for granted again. Together, they had faced the darkness and came out stronger. Lisa wrapped an arm around Jeremy, both basking in the sunlight now spilling through as they walked back towards the warmth of home, united and unbroken, finally at peace. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, they were truly free. Make sure to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will take you on another wild ride. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. And don't just sit there, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. I want to hear from you. Remember, you need to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. True fans know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.